Hi, it's Maija here with the wrap-up of books 110 to 116 that I've read this year. And these are all the books that I read in October that didn't qualify for the October challenge. And this will be a very comics-heavy wrap-up because I only read one novel and all 6 of my other reads were comics. So in case you don't care about comics, I'm going to start with the novel first. But all in all, I read 1 horror novel, 4 fantasy comics, a horror comic, and an autobiographical comic. And as always, timestamps will be in the description if you want to skip to some specific books and comics. The first 2 things that I'm going to be talking about didn't qualify for the challenge because I bought them in October. The Family Plot by Cherie Priest I bought on the 1st of October. It was a monthly Kindle deal. And it's a horror book, so it was very seasonal, so I decided to pick it up. This is about a salvage crew who sets out to work on this old family estate, the Withrow Mansion. And of course the place is haunted. They only have this small 4-person crew to go and work there because their company is having money problems. And the main character is Dahlia, and she's the daughter of the company owner. And she has just gotten divorced, and she has lost this old house that she used to live in that she loved. Then the other characters are Dahlia's cousin, his son, and this one other man who works for the company. And the surprising thing about this book was that I really loved just following them, just working on the mansion, going through all the old stuff, doing the salvage work, even when nothing spooky was happening. And I found it so interesting, and those parts just flew by. This was a perfect October Halloween read, a spooky secluded mansion with a ghost. This definitely delivered an atmospheric haunted house story, and I really like the main character. And to me, horror stories, horror books and horror movies are more about the journey and less about the end. So to me, a great spooky atmosphere is worth more than the end reveals and the resolution. And I gave this 4.5 stars. The second thing that didn't qualify for the challenge because I bought it in October was The Girl from the Other Side, Volume 5 by Nagabe. This is a beautiful dark fairy tale manga about this little girl and this monster who live together in a little cabin in the forest, away from the humans who wish them harm. And you have seen a lot of these volumes in my wrap-ups because I absolutely love this series. And this one continues to deliver on the beautiful artwork, and the relationship between the monster and the girl remains heartwarming, and the atmosphere is mysterious but cozy at the same time. And I gave this one 3.5 stars. So not my favorite of the volumes, but it was still good. Then the rest of the comics that I'm going to talk about didn't qualify because they were borrowed books. I borrowed them either from the library or from Reija from the Bookfinch. First I'm going to talk about the 3 comics I got from the library, and the first of those is Harrow County Volume 7, Dark Times Are Coming by Cullen, Bunn and Tyler Crook. This is a Southern Gothic horror comic, and it continues the story of Emmy, who is this powerful witch reincarnated. And I've actually lost interest in this comic as it goes along. I think more in the past 2 volumes or so, but I'm still reading it for the watercolor art and the creepy crawlies, and because I think the last volume is the next volume, so volume 8, and it's waiting for me at the library. So I think I'll just finish this series to see how the story finishes, but I gave this one only 2.5 stars. Then I read My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness by Nagata Kabi. This is an autobiographical manga where the author tells about her experiences in exploring her sexuality and struggling with her mental health. She has depression and she feels like she has no real direction, and she has a hard time interacting with people. And one part of the comic is about Nagata going to a lesbian escort service to deal with her loneliness and learn about her sexuality. The main part of the comic deals with her mental health issues, and the part that I connected with the most was how she's not good with people in person and how she acts according to what she thinks are other people's expectations of her and not how she truly feels. And does she even acknowledge or know how she truly feels? This is a very introspective read about mental health issues, and I gave it 4 stars. The last graphic novel that I read from the library was The Tea Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill, and this is a cute all-ages fantasy comic. It tells about the blacksmith's apprentice Greta, and she meets a tea dragon and its owner and starts to learn about the dying art of tea dragon care. The art in this is delightful. You can see it a bit from the cover. It has these big color areas. And my favorite part about the whole thing was the art, and especially the chapter start illustrations. They were just so calming to look at. Many different kinds of people are represented. The characters have different skin colors. One of them is in a wheelchair, and there are same-sex relationships. And it's just this lovely calm look into a magical world for a younger audience. And I didn't click with it that much apart from the art, but it's a simple and sweet story, and I gave it 3 stars. Then on to the 2 comics I borrowed from Reija, and the first of those is Fear Theory, Uitspan Era, Catalogue 1 by Alex Singer and Jade Aïd-Kaci. And I don't really know what to say about this. I was pretty confused while I was reading this. So it's a very short first chapter or so of the story, which is this magical, like, fantasy steampunk world, and it's set, at least this first chapter was set in a magical school. But I was a bit lost when I was reading it. I wanted a bit more background information. Maybe if I was following the webcomic, it's a webcomic, and the creators, I would be more in the world and know more, but for now like I said, I was a bit confused. I couldn't get fully into it. I felt like I was missing some information. The magic system in this seemed promising, but from the first chapter I couldn't get a good look into the story, what the story is gonna be about, and I didn't actually give this one a rating. I would have to read more in order to do that. And finally I read Steve Lichman Volume 1 by David Rapoza and Daniel Boren. And this is a fantasy humor comic where the comedy comes from these D&D monsters acting like a bunch of frat boys. And it was funny at the start, but it quickly became tiring. I might have read too much of it in one go and just been inundated with too much frat boy humor, but I think it could have been done so much better if they had continued to focus on the D&D monsters and sort of like D&D groups and these fantasy clichés and making them fun. But in actuality, Steve got sidelined and there became this plot about revolving around 2 vampires. There was a not so cool Dracula and the new cool guy of the block, Kiefer. Wink, wink, nudge. That plot just wasn't that interesting. Also, the only remarks to women were done in the context of scoring, and a lot of derogatory terms were used, and it just became very tiring very fast, and I gave it 1.5 stars. So that was finally all that I read in October. If you want to know what else I read in October, go watch my October wrap-up. But that's all from me for now, and I'll see you in my next video.